Andres,
What's up, Russ?
we're back.
Yeah, we are. What week is this?
I don't know, it's a streak.
We're going strong.
Yeah.
I love it.
And once again, is this 2 weeks in a row? 3 weeks in a row?
3 weeks in a row. Although, Wait, what? Wait.
Oh, I meant like 3 weeks in a row having a special
Right,
guest.
okay, cool. That's
Yeah,
what I
what
thought.
were you going to say?
No, that's what I thought you meant.
Okay.
But I was going to say, does Kevin really count as a guest?
Oh, no. Well, if he came over your house, would he be a guest?
Maybe.
So maybe he's a guest here.
Maybe he is.
Okay.
All right.
So
Anyways,
we did a little bit of leapfrogging, but we're back.
we're back.
To guests.
Right.
And we have a very special guest with us today. Probably the tallest guest ever.
Probably at this point, because Kevin's shrinking and Allie's not that tall.
So, yeah, Zach was saying that Kevin is compressing his spine.
You're really throwing Zach under the bus. That's really wild. Sorry, Kev.
I'm sorry, Zach. Forgive me.
Zach is in the room.
He is in the room. And so is somebody else who's even more
so
special.
Is someone else. Even more special. That's awful. Well, we're joined by Dan Mawhinney.
Yes.
Hey,
Hello, Dan.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Am I going to get my check by mail, or are you guys going to give it right after? I was told half a mil.
Well, it
but-
depends. Russ just talked about sharing your resources, so it
give you a
depends how
cut.
much we get in.
Yeah, I'll give you
No,
about
I
20%.
didn't say I want any.
Kevin spoke about
Oh,
sharing
that's
resources.
right. That's right.
I was talking about serving.
Oh, even
But
better.
you know what? If you want your muffler fixed for a cheap price, let me tell you, give you a nice recommendation.
Oh, are we sponsored by someone? Is that
No,
what
I'm
you're
not
saying?
going to say who we're sponsored by today. A local
Unfortunate.
business that maybe or maybe not be in Bridgeport that fixes mufflers for a cheap price.
Talk to you after
Love
the show
that.
for more information.
Yeah, send us coupons. You know who you are. All right. So
All right.
I wanted to start today. I'm sure we could ask a really fun question in a little bit.
Right.
But first, I wanted to surprise us with something that may not go over well.
Oh.
Well, because we're in this new studio, season 3. We're here. We've added a couple blue lights here and there. But
Here and there.
we've never had a decoration.
No.
So I wanted to christen our space with a decoration.
I love that. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, so I realized it doesn't fit our white wall, black random things, and we have a lamp.
We do have a lamp.
So it doesn't fit the theme of any of those colors, but there's a story behind it. So you ready for this?
I'm ready. Is this
So-
a faith story or?
No. Well, you want me to give it? I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to present it first.
Oh, okay.
Then I'm going to mount it,
Okay, great.
and then so everyone can see it, and then I'll talk about it.
Great. Love
All right,
that.
ready? No one's seen this before. This is
No one.
exciting.
I'm surprised. Where are you hiding this? This must be
He's-
small.
Coffee. That's so,
Is there a story behind this? Where
Heather would not be impressed by this sign. That's a pretty.
did you make this at home? Was this like you and your kids, like Saturday afternoon project?
No, but tell me you can see that. Yes. Okay, so this, if you cannot tell, is a sign that says coffee.
That's what it says.
So the red letters with the gold trim and then the nice black background with the red nice wood frame. It actually is a pretty heavy-duty coffee sign. And the reason being is because, have you ever heard of the store Wegmans?
Yes.
I have. Big thing in Massachusetts.
Big
Everyone
big
loves
thing in New
Wegmans.
Jersey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You've never been in New
big
Jersey,
thing in
thankfully?
Pennsylvania, specifically Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Wegmans, about 10 years ago, decided to change all of their signs in their whole entire store.
Right.
And one of my friends used to work there, and he got wind that they were getting rid of all their signs. And so he went to the dumpster, and he found this sign that said coffee because it was their former coffee sign for this grocery store. Wegmans is a grocery store, by the way. For
Are
those
we
of you who don't
sponsored
know.
by them?
No, but we should be because
week.
from the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania Wegmans comes our first decoration.
I love it.
Straight from the dumpster
Not
to
clean.
our pot. It's a little dusty. It's been in my closet for a little while because my wife won't let me put it in our house.
Oh, so you brought it here.
Yeah, well, so in our first house, when we moved to Vermont, she let me mount it on the wall, and then it came down pretty quick because she didn't like any of it.
Right.
And then it's been in my closet ever since then. So it's been about 8 years in the closet, and now here we go. It's in our podcast
Where's the appropriate
studio.
place in your house to plant a coffee sign? Is it the kitchen, or would you plant it in your living room, or where would
Yeah.
you put that?
I put it in the kitchen, and then
was
too
a
many
no-go.
people saw it. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not in your bedroom. No.
No, there's no coffee served there.
That's unfortunate.
That's a you problem, I think. I have coffee in my bedroom.
Right.
so-
Your wife doesn't. You or your wife don't bring each other coffee in the morning.
No.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So I feel like this is just making it so we have to have our fun question for the day be about coffee?
Oh, interesting.
Well, it just makes sense. We're talking about coffee. We got a coffee sign.
So do you have one though?
No.
Oh, great.
We could also talk about how many signs we've stolen from different organizations. So, I mean, maybe you're the only one who's done it, but
Zach says he's stolen 5 signs.
That's good. Let's put that out on the
Very
podcast.
Zach.
Yeah. He may have acquired them differently. I don't know. He's not using words right now. So
We love that.
how about we ask a question about coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So if you, I'm really struggling to come up with one. You have one?
Worst date you've had over coffee.
Worst date I've had over coffee? Dan.
Dan's only dated like one woman in his life.
We're
Yeah,
gonna,
true.
you,
married her,
you just
so-
gave away his answer, okay?
Yeah, I feel like I would be in the doghouse if I shared worst date over coffee. There was one time, if you guys have ever heard of the really expensive coffee that those monkeys poop out, me and my buddies really wanted to get some, but it's like for 10 ounces of coffee beans, it costs like 50 or 60 bucks, and we didn't want to spend that. So we all pitched in like $10 to make half a pot of this really expensive coffee. And we all tried it, and we shared it. Super watery and very disappointing. So I don't know if it counts because it was a bunch of dudes in someone's random house.
Drinking
Wasn't
monkey,
really a
monkey
date.
poop coffee.
Yeah. Didn't live up to the hype either. So worst $10 I've ever spent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My dad has recently got cat poop coffee, and he's been trying to get us to drink it. My brother and I. He actually mailed it to Virginia for my brother to try, and it's a type of cat. I think it's called a serval. Does that sound right?
Sure.
I think
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
I can't remember what the country is, but one of his friends from his church brought it back when he was on like a work trip.
Seems illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Smuggling cat poop coffee into the country. You can get prison time for that.
I'm pretty sure you get diseases for that.
Same
right.
thing. Prison.
You go, Andres.
Neither of you shared anything about a date and coffee. So.
I didn't go yet.
I don't know that I have one. I'm like trying to think. I just
Then
threw
how did you
something
come
out
up
there.
with the question if you're like,
Yeah,
I figured you had a really good story.
No.
Just tell us a coffee story then.
I don't. Zach said I do, but I don't.
Tell us a coffee story.
Oh, actually, okay. So, yeah, okay. No, I can't share this story.
You can.
Okay,
Zach can edit it out.
Zach can edit it
yeah,
out.
yeah.
So, took a student to one of my favorite coffee shops one time.
What was it called?
Shearwater.
Oh.
This message is not sponsored by them. Kevin would be
Coupons.
ashamed. But if you do have coupons, send them. But took a student to Shearwater. It was one day after, I think it was after church. And we were just grabbing coffee. And I've been going to this coffee shop now for almost 10 years. So baristas know me really well, or at least so I thought. So student orders coffee, goes outside. I stay inside to pay, and the barista's like, "So who's that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "Is that like your?" And I said, "No, that's my student." And she was like, "Wait, what student? What do you do? Are you a teacher?" I said, "No, I'm a youth pastor." And she went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." She thought I was dating my student. Very
Oh,
awkward.
that's very awkward.
Very weird.
Did
So I-
student ever get wind of this? Or was
Yeah.
this,
I went
okay.
back to the table and I told my student, and he died laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. So
Yeah, there's multiple layers to that story.
yeah.
That took
Yeah.
a turn at the end I wasn't expecting.
right. So
It's pretty weird, Andres.
Russ, I'm expecting something more curvy and more surprising than that.
I
so.
have nothing on that.
great.
No.
We're doing awesome.
I don't even know a coffee story to share besides the first time that I drank coffee. That's all I got.
What
I
was
don't
the
really
first
have any
time?
cool coffee stories. So my dad had these friends from Nairobi, Kenya, and they were living with my parents for like 6 months. And I was like 19, and they were like mind blown that I never drank coffee. And so they made this coffee over like live flames. It was pretty exciting.
Nice.
And they poured it right off the flames in these little cups, and they drank it right away. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna drink this right away. I don't know what I was thinking, like that the coffee was not gonna be scalding hot, but the cup actually stuck to my lip because it was that hot. And
Whoa.
and then they all laughed at me because I burnt my mouth. And they told me that I would stop burning my mouth like if I just kept doing this. But I like tasting things, so I decided that was not gonna Not going to keep doing that. And that's the first time I drank coffee. And then it was so strong, I just sat there and was like giggling and really sweaty for like an hour.
Is that different than normal? I feel like most of the time I see you, you're giggling and sweaty. So.
That's true. It's true. Can't deny it. Yeah.
Well,
I wish I had a better story for you. That's it. There's nothing really exciting in my life that happens over coffee. I just like to drink it and focus on things really intensely.
nice. But
Yeah.
you're drinking tea today, so it'll be different.
Well, right now I've had coffee already.
Oh, good. This is my second cup. And
Yeah.
Dan's been drinking the same Starbucks drink since he got it at 7:30 this morning. So
Hey, it's called being cost efficient. You know, I can only afford one Starbucks drink a week, so you just gotta spread it out. You know,
Dan,
Over how many
7:30
days?
we have a
a
Keurig
week,
machine.
7 days. It's not the same. I would know.
All right. Well,
Well, we're here talking about serving today, finishing up our Abide series. We've been in here for what, 6 weeks? Talking about this 7
In
weeks?
here?
No, I
This
was being
room?
like the Abide series in
Oh.
general.
yeah. just
And
about.
we haven't gotten a podcast for every single one, but
No,
this has been really great
unfortunate.
going through it and being able to discuss
Actually,
further.
I want to fight
Why?
because we didn't get a podcast from mine.
Or Josh's.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to be such a victim, Andres.
I'm Gen Z. I have to be.
You've been here every single time besides
Besides the one that I was on. Besides the one I
no,
was
but I mean,
preaching.
like, we didn't have one. That I'm just like there. You don't even count as a guest. You're one of the hosts,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Brutal.
But you called
Yeah.
Kevin a guest.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That means if you went over to his house, you wouldn't be a guest.
I would not be a
You're
guest.
not
No, you
welcome
wouldn't
there.
be a guest. We've gone to pizza together. We shared pizza together.
We have. We have.
We've
Anyways,
carpooled many times
we
together.
have. You find your way into my car always.
All right, focus.
Sorry.
All right. I forgot what we were talking about.
Serving.
Serving.
Podcast. We're here.
Yeah, the life we get to live. I didn't
Amen.
finish it. I feel like you got to say it together. And so we were talking about serving last night. Or this podcast world. Remember that time? A week and a half ago, we were talking about serving.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah. So I wanted you guys to come, especially Dan, because you have some serving expertise. And so I wanted to hear what you guys have to say about serving. I could ask a question, but I could also just let you guys, if you have anything that came to you this morning or a week and a half ago when you heard the sermon.
Sure. Well, Dan, why are you an expert in serving?
That's a great question. I feel a little bit like I'm just pretending to be one. But my job here at BlackRock is I'm in charge of a couple of our different guest connections teams as well as hospitality teams for Sunday morning. So all that means is a lot of people don't actually know what I do. I'm usually behind the scenes on planning a bunch of stuff administratively, but also helping on guest follow-up anywhere I can. So I oversee a little over 100 volunteers for Sunday morning.
Wow.
And 6 different service teams, which is a lot of fun. Amen. So yeah, I mean, initially you said that you would love to have me on, talk about serving. And I think the time in my life that I felt the most served is actually somewhere outside of church. About a year ago, we moved to Connecticut from Boston, and we got a brand new apartment in Milford. It was awesome. And we had some friends from around the area help us move in. And I really remember feeling just in the moment that I didn't want to ask anyone for help. I have a really difficult time like reaching out and saying, hey, I'm in need, or I would like any help in different areas. And so these friends offered, they knew we were moving. They were like, we're going to show up whether or not you invite us. And we're just going to be there. And that initially started to make me feel really loved, but they went above and beyond of when they were there. They helped us move all of our furniture in, all of our huge boxes in. And then one of them spent an hour and a half in the dirty bathroom that I don't think was clean from when the past tenants moved out. And they just got in the shower and they took all their cleaning products. And they went on their hands and knees and cleaned for an hour and a half. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a really weird phobia of like showers. I'm a big proponent of shower shoes on retreats. Not at home. Not at home.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say you wear shower shoes at home. I was like, what in the world?
Full wetsuit, shower shoes, shower cap. No.
Good.
Whenever it's retreat season or camp season, I don't want to go in the showers without anything on my feet. So it was a really big deal of them really stepping out of their comfort zone and doing something no one really would ever want to do. And that was the time that I felt like just most served in my life as a whole, you know, and I think about that sometimes as well too, and think about how easy it is to serve in comparison to that of like, I would rather do anything than go to some stranger's bathroom and clean up for an hour and a half their
Right.
shower. But
Yeah, that's kind of gross.
Isn't that nasty?
I don't even like cleaning my shower.
Oh, it's gross. And let alone you don't know what happened in there and just
Right. Well,
ugh.
maybe I'll just start wearing shower shoes in my shower.
Always. You gotta do what you gotta do. If you need any recommendations, let me know. I got a few sponsors. So.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, you touched on something that we talked about as well in the sermon was the servant's heart needs to be humble enough to be served, and that's something that I feel like you just talked about there. Like, sometimes it's hard to ask for help, or asking people to serve you is kind of weird, but if you are able to ever be served, especially if you're serving a lot, you're used to serving a lot, it's crazy how life-giving and special it is to be served. Like, you didn't have to go in that shower and clean it out yourself, right? And but that experience also stretches to church life too, where it's just as important to come and be served as it is to go and serve yourself. Not serve yourself, but like serve as well.
Right. Yeah, I love, Russ, you kind of hit 3 different areas. But I think even for me, like, I love serving, but I am the first to be like Dan, like, you don't have to serve me. Like, it's okay. Like, it feels weird to ask someone to, like, oh, hey, like, would you be able to do this for me? Or like, hey, I need help. And it feels awkward at times being able to ask people like, hey, can you come alongside me? Can you help serve in something that I'm doing? Because I think even growing up, you're kind of given this message that asking for help is like, it shows weakness. But it's actually something that, like, when people get to come alongside you and really like serve you or serve alongside you, like, it's a really big blessing to them, and to you. And I think oftentimes someone will say to me, like, don't reject someone like blessing you. And I don't view it like that. It's typically like, no, I'm admitting that I'm weak and I can't do this myself. But sometimes you just need that. And it's actually really good for us to even like show that we're weak and we need help, because we're not always strong. And like, that's part of leading to burnout. That's part of just leading to a ton of pride of thinking that you can do things on your own, when the reality of that is you can't.
Yeah. Something that really hit me in even thinking about what is serving, right? And how we serve other people, going into this conversation was, I kind of realized this weird dynamic we have as a culture of we have an understanding that the people who are most important or most valuable have the most people serving them, right? If you think about the richest people in the world, whenever they're portrayed in movies or TV shows, I don't really know any of them, which would be nice if I did, but the richest people always have butlers and servants and a house full of people who do things for them, right? Like, the most important businessmen have these assistants or these teams that are all serving them, right? And so I think even from the basis of our culture, it's an understanding of the more important you are, the more people you have serving you, right? Yeah. And I can remember so clearly back to the first Tuesday that we worked here at BlackRock. So we started on Monday, that was like all HR paperwork. Then Tuesday, for those of you who don't know, we have a breakfast once a month as a staff, right? And I was feeling really awkward going into the breakfast. I was like, I don't really know anyone. I don't really have any connections. I felt like it was going to be weird. Didn't really have as many things to start talking to people about. And so I tried my best to like make connections during breakfast. And then we had finished. It got into kind of like a little bit of a lull. And a nameless person, Kevin, got up right after everyone finished. And he just selflessly started collecting all the plates and all the dirty cups and everything. And for me, that was a huge moment, right? If it was a really little thing that he, incorporates into his life of serving and taking care of everyone on the team just by small actions. But how I saw it was like, hey, this pastor, this person that is above me, is my superior, who's been here for a longer amount of time than me, has stepped out of his way to do something he didn't have to do for me, not for recognition, not for anything like that. And it was more impactful too, because I felt like, hey, this is someone who's way more important than me in this community, right? And they're willing to step out of their comfort zone and serve me. And that is, I don't think I've ever talked to Kevin about it, but I was like, I think about that all the time. And the feeling that gave me has motivated me as well to like figure out those little ways in my life that I can be like, no, I'm going to serve people selflessly, even if in the world it doesn't make sense, or like, positionally it doesn't make sense. Like, I want to be the first person to step out, and do that for others.
It's good. We'll be watching you tomorrow. See if you pick up other people's plates.
I won't, now that I said it.
Good.
All right. So we're in a little bit of a unique position talking to each other in this room about serving because we all work for a church. We all work for the same church.
Right.
So some people can look at you from the outside and be like, well, you're paid to serve. But what they might not know is that you both are also involved serving in a position that is not your job. And so I wanted to ask you, like, why and in what capacity? So why serve in the area that you do and in what capacity?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
It's gonna
They've
go
tied
forever.
twice in a row. There we go. We got a winner.
Does that mean I have to go first? Or do you want to go first?
That means Andres goes first.
Oh, I go first. So I lead our high school ministry, run our intern program, but
As a job. That's
as a
your
job,
job.
yes, I get paid to do that, but I serve at Sanctuary. So part of kind of what I do at Sanctuary is I serve as a host on Sunday nights, but a while ago when I had transitioned into my position as kind of leading our high school ministry, Zach and I were just talking about serving at Sanctuary, and I was just talking about how like working 40 hours a week in my position, serving high school students, could be exhausting, and sometimes like I don't always want to serve. And I was actually thinking about taking a step back from serving at Sanctuary. And Zach was actually like, "Hey, what if you did something that wasn't in front of people? What if it was actually like something that you weren't necessarily seeing?" Because a lot of my job is being in front of people. I do announcements on Sunday mornings. I even hosting. I do that in front of the Sanctuary community. And Zach had encouraged, like, hey, what if once a month you just served elsewhere in the community? So I had started to serve with the Connect team because I was also like, hey, it'd be really cool if people saw me on platform hosting if they actually knew like who was hosting them. So I had started serving with our Connect team and just trying to kind of get myself in a different position that wasn't necessarily in front of people. And I think it's hard because I also went from I was on Sanctuary staff at one point as an intern, was kind of leading our college ministry stuff at Sacred Heart. And most people think to this day, like I still have people who like pull me aside and they're like, so tell me what exactly, like, what's your role on staff at Sanctuary? I'm like, nothing. And they're like, no, like, what do you do with Sanctuary? And I'm like, nothing. I don't do anything. But I think being an active part of the community that I get to attend every Sunday night with our young adults, it's just super important to not just attend, but to also serve, even though I get paid to work here at BlackRock. So
That's awesome.
Daniel, what do you get to do?
Well, I get to work with Andres at Fusion, which is incredible. So that's a high school ministry here at BlackRock. And so every Tuesday we get to hang out with high schoolers, lead small groups, do games with them, and different things like that. And that's very separate from what I'm normally doing on a week-to-week basis, you know, working with adults and working with the older people in our congregation. So it's a little bit refreshing for me. I like having multiple different areas of, there's just an energy with young people that when you're serving them, it feels a little bit like a good balance, especially when you have both in your life. But for me, I think what breaks it down even more is the mindset going into it, right? Of I can go to Fusion on Tuesday nights and not really serve anyone. Like I could show up, and if I'm not intentional about it, I'm just going to do whatever I'm comfortable with, right? Like I'm just going to play games. I'm just going to talk to the students that I want to talk to. I'm just going to do whatever makes me feel comfortable. And so I think it really is the heart behind it, right? For me, of going in there and saying there's some people who are coming to Fusion tonight who have no friends in school, or there's some people who are coming tonight who have really messed up stuff going on in their home lives, or even in their families, right? That are just, I can't even fathom or imagine, and they're not ready to talk about that yet. But being an older person in their life, you automatically kind of have that voice, and there's that say in their life in order to, you know, back them up and try to help and coach them in any way you can, you know. And so I also see that kind of mindset shift in my own job too. Like even working in ministry, that doesn't mean, even though I work 40 plus hours of ministry every single week, that doesn't mean I'm serving for 40 plus hours, right? You have to be really careful about your mindset as well, of not just doing tasks to get them done, or not just being in places to feel like you're, you know, accomplishing things, but also having that mindset of how do I actually put people above myself, and how do I actually make sure all of my work time goes to making other people's experiences better at the church and even helping them plug in any way that I can, right? Because if I'm just, again, doing the bare minimum or doing what I'm comfortable with, I don't really classify that as necessarily serving, you know?
It's good. That message was sponsored by Fusion.
What does he get for that?
Maybe
My friendship.
T-shirt?
Did I not
Sure.
have that before?
More deeper levels of friendship.
Amen.
All right, so we also talked about the heart of Jesus being to serve. And serving can be difficult because a lot of times serving costs us something. So for Dan, it's Tuesday nights. It costs him his Tuesday nights where he could be doing all sorts of stuff. And for you as Sanctuary, that's your Sunday nights. There's lots of stuff you could do on Sunday nights. There's a lot of people available not working on Sunday nights. So there's friendships. There's all sorts of costs involved. But one of those costs can also be church the way you found it, or Sanctuary the way you found it, where it's something you're used to going to, you're used to being fed, and you're used to being served. And so you love it because you could go there to be served. But the cost of service can be, you have to have this mindset switch for changing it to be a place that you used to say, I'm going to come here, be fed and be served, to I'm going to come here, be fed, serve, and be served.
Yeah.
And I talked for my experience, and it's a different story, was I had this Christmas Eve party that I loved.
Yeah.
And we changed it, and it was no longer the Christmas Eve I knew, and it was a Christmas Eve I had to serve on. And that mentality switch from changing to from being served to serving was difficult, and it was painful because I loved it the way it was. So how did you go from that mindset of just attending to serving? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
How did you do that in your experience? Like, how did that all play out? And
Yeah. So I think, that for me, like serving to me, I feel like I'm being really prideful. But serving is natural. I love serving. I think my mom always, I think, is growing up watching her serve other people, and my dad was an elected official and a teacher, so I watched my dad serve the community, which was really cool. But then as time went on and I became a Christian when I was 14, I started attending Fusion actually when I was in high school as a senior, and within like a month of joining Fusion, I was like, how do I join student leadership? And not in a like, I want to like be a leader, but like, hey, I want to be a part of what's going on. And I knew that student leadership meant serving. And then I left Fusion, went to college, joined InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, was a part of that community, became a leader. But a big part of that, again, was how do I serve the community that I'm a part of? There was almost this naturally ingrained thing of, if I'm going to be a part of this, then I should serve here. Like, I should be a part of what God is doing here. I don't just want to leave it as it is and just be a part of it, but I want to be part of forming and shaping something that's really beautiful, and knowing like, man, my fingerprints are all over what God is doing in this community because I'm listening to what the Lord is saying. I'm helping to be a part of leading different people, and like serving different people, and that looked like I was the president of our organization as a senior, but I showed up an hour early every week to set up the room. No other leaders were doing that, but it was just like, hey, I just want to make sure that that's what people knew. And towards the end, like having to like give that over to like new leaders and say like, hey, like this is part of what we do. This is part of what I've done. You guys wouldn't have known that because it was always set up. It was always here. So that was just natural. I think I was in a unique position kind of coming to Sanctuary because I joined Sanctuary as an intern. So it was like my job to like set stuff up and serve. But it was always thinking about how do I go the extra mile, that it's not just kind of what Dan was talking about. I'm not just doing the bare minimum just to like, cool, like I can tick that off. But like we used to have a table when we would go to Rwanda. I hated setting up the Rwanda table. There was so much stuff that went into setting up the Rwanda table. And back then, when Lauren Elmsley was part of our community, I would set up the Rwanda table, and then she would come and she would actually set up the Rwanda table because she had a different aesthetic. But part of what I did after a while was like, I'm going to watch how Lauren sets stuff up so that I can set it up the same way next time. I think I even had a picture on my phone of how Lauren set up the table because I wanted to make sure like she did it well. She did it excellently. So I wanted to mimic that so that I wasn't just setting stuff up just to set stuff up. And I think even something I've taught a couple years ago, I was talking to our high school student leaders about how they saw Fusion. And a lot of them were like, well, I spend more time at Black Rock than I probably do at home. And like, I want people to come into Fusion feeling like this is home. So I changed our student leadership team to something called Home Team, because the message that I got was, hey, people want to feel like they're walking into their house when they come to church. They feel like they can take off all of their struggles, their anxieties, their burden, their stress. So then my pushback to them was then, how do you do that? How do you make Fusion feel like a home? And like, I would even, for people who call Sanctuary home, their home church, or people talk about Sanctuary like they love Sanctuary. How do we make Sanctuary something that is like, when someone new comes in, we're welcoming them into our home? I know that when I have people coming over, right now my home is a mess. I clean my house like there's no tomorrow. Why? Because I want people to feel welcomed when they come in. I make sure I have a candle on. I make sure, right, that everything about my house is welcoming and inviting. And that's part of why we have serving teams. We have a cafe team, not just because we like coffee, but because we want people to come in and feel like, oh man, they care so much about people coming in that they make coffee for them. We have Connect dinners. Why? Because we want new people to feel welcomed and know more about Sanctuary. We have a Connect team, not so that people can walk by them, but so that people can walk in and think like, man, they thought about the new guests enough that they would have someone greet them at the door to say, hey, welcome, we're so glad you're here. Why? Because we care about our home. So I think that's like a connection point for me of how do we, like, if you're thinking about like, oh, I want to serve, but I don't really know. You talked about like the insecurity part of like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or man, if you're part of Sanctuary, you call Sanctuary your home. How can you help make Sanctuary feel more like a home? And Dan, I know that that's a lot of kind of how you feel as well.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of thinking about my story, I think it's very similar to you, Andres, right? Of naturally, I'm someone who likes to be doing stuff. Like, I don't like sitting still. I don't like not having things on my agenda or doing things. And so naturally, I think I find myself serving in different capacities because it's better than the alternative, right? Which is just sitting around and not necessarily having something on the agenda, right? So sometimes even that's a bad mentality for me to go into serving with. But I think something that was really impactful for me was how our head pastor back in Boston always communicated serving. He always said, hey, there's different expectations on you depending on where you find yourself in relation to us as a church, right? If you're our guest, think about it like I'm inviting you to a barbecue. If you're a guest, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you to bring a side dish. I'm not asking you to show up with anything. I'm not asking you to show up with a 20 so I can pay for food. I just want you to come and enjoy, right? But if you're someone who I'm close to or I'm a friend with, I might ask you for a 20. I might ask you to hop on the grill for a little bit. I might ask you to do a little bit something. But if you're family, and I'm holding a family barbecue, I'm going to expect the world from you, right? Like, if you say that you're my family and I break down on my way to the barbecue, I'm going to expect you to come pick me up, right? Like, there's just different expectations depending on where you find yourself in relation to these different communities, right? And so, like you're saying, if Sanctuary is your church home, like, there's expectations of like, hey, if you're family with us, right, then that means that you're one of the first ones who's willing to give up time so that you can better our community, because you're not just pouring it in. You're not just doing it to build up Black Rock. You're not doing it to build up Russ. You're not doing it to build up our leaders. You're doing it to build up what God's doing in this area, right? And it only happens when we all contribute to that vision and that mission, right? It brings up an interesting conversation that I was having yesterday. We're filming this on a Monday. So yesterday, Sunday, one of my volunteers came up to me, and she was asking some questions, and she said, Dan, I love serving. Like, I really have a huge passion for serving. It's great. Every single time I serve, I walk away and I feel so excited about my life. And then she said something a little unexpected. She said, I wish I felt worse after I served. I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. You wish you felt worse? And she was like, yeah, I wish I felt worse, because it feels almost selfish for me that I feel really good when I serve. And sometimes that's what motivates me. And so I know we didn't plan this, Russ, but I would love to hear from you, and maybe Andres too, if you want to chime in. Like, what are your thoughts on people serving because maybe it feels natural or maybe it feels really good to serve? Like, is that a wrong thing? Like, if you feel good or really like filled with purpose after you serve, like, is that biblical? Is that not? Like, what do you guys think? I know I'm putting you on the spot, so.
Oh, that's fine. I put you on the spot with every question, so it's not like you guys knew what I was going to ask in advance. I would actually love to answer this because this is something that my wife and I actually talk about quite a bit. One of the fruits of the Spirit is joy, and
Also your last name.
it also is my last name, which people always think is a stage name, which is funny.
Imagine.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah.
You can only be a pastor if one of your last name is a fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah. So my mom, I know we're getting off on a tangent, but my mom's middle initial is A. And so on her license, it says Heidi A. Joy. And so people always think it's like at the airport, they always stop her. They're like, is this your real name?
That's
So,
funny.
yeah, it is. If I was going to make up a name, my last name would be insane compared to what it is. Like, it would definitely be something along the lines of SpongeBob. For sure. I love SpongeBob. Yeah. It's like Russ SpongeBob. Yeah, 2 first names. Anyways. Okay, so I know.
You and your wife, you always talk about.
He just wanted more time to think about the question.
No.
before he
Always talk about, yeah. So, because I've been around church a lot. My parents started church when I was a little kid, and I remember having this pop up quite a bit where people would act like if you were finding joy in something you were doing, it was probably sinful. Or if you were having fun doing something, you probably shouldn't be doing it because like you're not supposed to be having fun. And so fun doesn't often make its way into the church world. And I don't know why, because joy is a fruit of the Spirit, and joy is a byproduct of fun, right? When you're doing stuff with your friends or your family that's fun, you're like laughing, right? Laughing, smiling. Community time at Sanctuary, why do people giggle and laugh, and why are there smiles all over the place? Because it's fun, and fun brings out joy, right? I think that heaven's going to be like a really fun place. I think when we've thought of heaven in the past, we've depicted heaven as this really serious place, but also because church in the past was really serious. And I've been to many church services that are very solemn and almost sad, like a funeral.
Like a funeral? Yeah.
But it's like we're celebrating that like the King is risen, right? That's something to have joy about. And especially if that's one of his key characteristics is joy, right? If we're going to celebrate his life, like a celebration of life service, you always reflect on like the things of this person's life that they loved. And if he loves joy so much, then you're probably going to have a good time, right? Yeah. Imagine trying to be joyous and not have fun. Right? Is that possible? It's like trying to dunk in slow motion. Like, you can't move in slow motion and leave the ground. Right?
So that doesn't usually happen in slow motion.
No, it's only filmed as you go. You make it fast motion, normal pace. You gotta slow it down to like times 100, whatever.
Gotcha.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like the same. So, let's say you're serving in a capacity that's something that you really enjoy. Like some people really like videography. They could film something. I don't know if they're filming something behind the camera. They're like, but they can have a really good time doing it. And people have joy in different ways. Some people really enjoy playing chess, which I don't understand. Like Jamie Stratton loves playing chess. I'm sure, I don't know, he might be giggling behind the phone when he's playing, but like there are other things that like playing sports. People have sports ministries where they're teaching people how to play sports and they're having fun and they're laughing. And even the classic worship thing, you could listen to like a live worship album by like Elevation or Maverick or whoever, and randomly like in the middle of singing, someone will just be like, "Ha ha!" You know what I'm talking about? You ever hear that in worship songs? Yeah, people just love laughing and it's joyous. And because they're having a good time singing, does that mean that it's sinful or some way wrong? No. And I think that we need to have more fun and have more joy in church in general and anything we do, whether it's serving. I know you asked about serving. I brought it to church as a whole, but I'm all about having fun and having joy, because if it's a fruit of the Spirit, then it's probably something we should prioritize,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think serving should be fun. I can think about kind of key memories with friends where I was serving that like we still joke about today that are like they weren't anything funny, but like I think like one of the first times I met Heather Lovelit, who serves who serves on the sanctuary staff, I met her because I was serving on setup, and I had to teach her. We joke. I had to teach her the ropes. We were literally putting the ropes up in sanctuary, and she still laughs about it to this day. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Heather does not serve on setup team, but you can find her in the sanctuary or in the worship center setting up the ropes still. So anytime I walk in and I see her doing that, she's always like, Andres, remember you taught me the ropes. And we laugh about it, but that was because we were serving together. You know, like it was a good time as part of one of the ways that we actually became friends. And I think we should have fun serving. As someone who leads a ministry, like, Dan, I would hate if you came every Tuesday and you were like, I hate serving these high school students. I'd be like, well, bro, maybe you should leave. But I think it's fun. I think serving should be fun. Now, I think one of the things that you asked about too that I want to address, because I think it's something I struggle with, is when you serve selfishly, when you serve to be seen, when you want people to see that you're serving, because that's me. At certain points in my walk with Jesus that were unhealthy, I served as a way to win the approval of God, win the approval of others. I struggle a lot with people pleasing, and I've found myself at certain points like having to ask myself, why am I serving? Am I serving because I'm serving to worship the Lord, or am I serving to win approval of people or to win approval of the Lord? And I think that's maybe a little bit where it can get dangerous, where it's like, hey, are we serving selfishly because we just need to fill up something in ourselves of like, I just need to feel good about myself, or I feel like I have this legalistic sense of the Lord and his love, and I feel like I need to serve to make sure that I'm in God's good graces, or, you know, I did some really bad stuff this week, so I'm going to serve on a Connect team to really make up for it. And it's like, no, the Lord loves you regardless. You are a child of God. The Lord loves you as a son or daughter before you ever serve. We serve out of an overflow of what the Lord has done for us. And I think that's where the joy comes in of like, man, Jesus has done so much to serve me. Like, I want to serve others because of it. It's the same thing sharing our resources. Jesus has given so much to me, so I give out of what he's done. Like, I think when we do everything out of worship to the Lord, it just changes a little bit of what we're doing, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. I love those answers. Those are great. We kind of kept on having that conversation, right, for a few minutes, and kind of where we landed yesterday was, well, we don't think it's a bad thing. We actually think it's great, just like you guys are saying. And we actually think that it feels so great sometimes and so satisfying and fulfilling because that's literally what we were designed to do, right? I think sometimes we, like Russ was saying, like we get confused, right? Because all these things that we like feel good in or feel excited about sometimes, like they're not the things that we should be doing. But I think serving truly is one of those things that we see modeled all throughout the Bible. We see modeled by Jesus of like him going to the very, like, you know, the very least of them and serving them. And it just, him showing us like, hey, this is what you were designed to do. This is what you were made to do. And we started talking too about like, you know, if you take my youth pastor, he was from Georgia, deep South. And so terrifying, not like, anyway.
The South is terrifying? Or
yeah,
Georgia
the South in general, specifically Georgia. I wouldn't go. But anyway, he was from down there, and so he liked NASCAR a lot. And what he always communicated was, hey, whenever I see a high potential leader in a bad situation, I always think like they're like a NASCAR, right? Like a NASCAR is built for speed. It's built to go fast. It's built to weather corners. Like it's built to go really, really fast and efficiently. But if you put a NASCAR in the middle of the field, like it's just gonna like burn out, right? Like it can't handle that situation, right? And so sometimes I think we're like driving on the road if we're a NASCAR, right? And we're saying like, man, this feels really smooth. This feels great. It's like, yeah, it should. You were designed to do that, right? Like you were designed and made to serve others. So it makes perfect sense why it's like, you know, it feels so natural and so fulfilling, you know?
Yeah, I think, Dan, as you were talking, I thought about Philippians 2, just because I feel like that's the hallmark of serving. If you actually go on the Sanctuary website, on blackrock.org/sanctuary, under our serving is our privilege core value. Philippians 2 is under there. I'm going to read it. I'm reading from the CSB. But it says, if then there's any encouragement in Christ, if any consolation of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, make my joy complete by thinking the same way, having the same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourselves. Everyone should look not to his own interest, but rather to the interest of the other. Adopt the same attitude as that of Christ Jesus, who existing in the form of God did not consider equality with God as something to be exploited. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant, taking on the likeness of humanity. And like, I think as we read through that, and you can continue to read through it, but I think if we understand that Jesus himself, who we're called to model our lives after, became a servant to serve us by dying on the cross, which is like, you want to complain about like serving people. Nobody's asking you to die on the cross for people who will never love you back, who like might be like, oh yeah, Jesus, this is cool. And then, no, maybe not. Who will turn away from you, betray you, right? Even we see, Russ, you were talking about him, Jesus literally like washing the feet of his disciples, which is disgusting in and of itself. They weren't wearing shower shoes like Dan. Washes the feet of Judas, who is literally about to go betray him. Like the ultimate show of humility, sacrifice. And we're called to be like him. Jesus had every reason to complain, to say, this is stupid. I don't even like these people. Why am I doing this? Yet he chooses the cross. So much so that even the walk to the cross, it says that for the joy set before him, he endures the cross, right? He serves us because of the joy set before him, which is to be united with his people, and to his people could be united with him. And I just think like, man, if we have that same attitude of like, man, I'm going to do whatever I can to serve the people around me, to think of them better as me, because Jesus thought of me as better than himself, that he would die for me. Like how joyful would it be to serve the people around us? Like how much less would we complain when it's like, oh man, like Sanctuary is asking me to serve again. Like, yeah, serve again, man. Come on. Like, why? Because Jesus has served us in such a lavish way. And like, not just to serve the church, but to serve people outside of these four walls, to like love the people outside of these walls. That's why we did something like partnering with Hopeline and giving diapers. Like that's such an easy way. Like we made it so easy to say like, just Venmo this number and we'll buy them for you. Like, but it's such an easy way for us to come alongside and say, man, if Jesus did this for me, how do I do that for others? And I think there is the practicality of like, join a serving team. Like we would love to do that, but how can we be the hands and feet of Jesus outside of this place? Whether that's holding the door open for someone or like helping someone when they're taking their groceries out of their cart and putting them into their car. Like, how can we show the love of Christ to people? Because that's what we're called to do no matter where we are, no matter like what we do, no matter who we are. And I think that like that has to be our motivation of like remembering, man, Jesus did this for me. I can do this for other people. And sometimes I have to do that. I'm quick to complain, very quick to complain, especially when it has to do, I think I'll even hit like serving my family is 10 times harder than serving the people at Sanctuary, 10 times harder than serving my friends. Literally yesterday, I had to drive to Target with my mom and it was like 20 minutes away. And I was like, dude, I could be doing anything else with my time, but it served my mom to drive with her to Target. Like, but I was complaining. I literally told my sister, like, we couldn't pick a closer Target, dude. Like, there's one 5 minutes down the road. But if it was somebody at Sanctuary, I wouldn't have complained. If it was somebody that I work with, I would have been like, oh, this is joy. If it was a high school student, dude, let's do it. You know, but like, man, if I have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, then everything that I do is a joy of getting to serve other people.
Yeah. That's something that I love that you mentioned week and a half ago as well, Russ, is the fact that in your sermon, you were talking about how in that room that Jesus was washing the feet of his disciples, like he was the most important person, right? Like he was number one, but he still served. And I know personally in my life, sometimes I don't want to serve other people because I don't want them to see me as less than, right? Or I don't want it to affect my value in other people's eyes, right? Of like, oh, if Dan's the one who's cleaning up all the messes, clearly like his time is worth the least out of everyone here. Like people just make assumptions when they see you serving sometimes, right? And so sometimes for me, like it affects value statements, right? Or it affects how I see myself or how I want other people to see me as well. And I think even something that we can glean from Jesus being the most important person in the room, but still being the one who chose to serve, is that our value isn't reflective of how like other people see us on this earth, right? Like our value is steady in who Jesus says we are and who we are in relation to God, right? And Jesus did not change his relation to God in that moment when he stepped down, he took the position of the least, right? Like God still knew who he was. God still valued him at that level, and it was set. But he was able to reflect a really humble attitude because he had such a clear understanding of his purpose and value in God beforehand, which allowed him to go and serve other people, right? And I think for us too, if we had a clear understanding of that value that we innately have in Jesus' love for us, like you're saying, we would be so much more willing to serve at all times, right? Because it's like, no, I've already been given everything that I have, right? Like, it's all a gift for me. I don't earn anything. I haven't deserved it, and I'm not faking it. Like I don't need other people to think I'm important because I know who values me and how much I'm valued, right?
That's good. It's good stuff.
I was thinking about just even what Dan was saying, like Jesus did that, and that was his last act with his friends. And I looked at a breakdown of how like the timeline played out before Sunday as well. And Jesus took off his clothes to wash everybody's feet because it's easier to clean off your body than it is to clean off his clothes. But what's also interesting is that he didn't even have time to clean off his body or clean off his clothes before he was arrested. So he had dinner that night, and then it was something at like 5 a.m., somewhere around there, that he gets arrested. And it's just like Jesus went to the trial and to the cross with a body covered with the disciples' dirtiness from their feet, which is really interesting because it's also like he was bearing our dirtiness on the cross, right? There's a lot of like similarities there. He didn't have time to wash it off first, but he willingly went to the cross with like the dirtiness of his disciples still on him.
That's wild.
Which is crazy.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, well, me neither. I just thought about it right now.
But that's deep.
Yeah. Well, because I was saying a week and a half ago was that Jesus took off his clothes because he was going to do a really thorough job, right? Because he doesn't have a laundry machine that he just tosses clothes in. Because like the feet are going to get like you've gotten like grass stains and mud on your clothes. It takes a while to get out, right? And he's not able to just wash and dry it before he's got to leave the house.
Yeah.
So it makes sense it'd be easier like wash the body off, but it doesn't say that he did that.
Yeah.
And I imagine it probably like if like the way you like shine shoes, you probably toss their feet up on his knee, It's getting all over the place.
That's. I'm glad. I just like you sharing that. Like I just the thought of that. I don't know. Maybe it's not as deep for other people, but like.
No, it hit me too.
Like that's gross and disgusting, but like how beautiful that's what he like went to the cross with was the disgustingness of his friends, which is exactly what he does for us.
Yeah.
That's wild.
The point I was trying to get to was that he was like operating on this timeline that was short. He knew that his time was running up and he had one last night with his friends to act or talk.
Sure.
So what did he do with his last few hours? And I've thought about this a lot with my own life and my friends. Even when I was in high school, I remember thinking that like, if this is my last time hanging out with my friends, what would I want them to know? Or if this is my last night with my family, I think about this when I travel. I'm like, what if I have a horrible accident and I never see my family again? What would I want them to know before I leave? So I like hug my kids extra. Like, I love you. Like, you tell your mom when I'm gone, right? And
She can't marry anyone else.
no, I actually say the opposite. I'm like, find someone that will make you happy.
On the trip, or do you clarify?
No, I clarify if I die, I want her to get remarried.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
If I'm not back in a week and a half, then go find someone else.
If you don't hear from me, don't come looking. But so the timeline thing is something that I actually tried to get into for a little bit, because I was like, if you can measure how much time we have left, then something like going on a trip with your mom all of a sudden takes on way more meaning. Because like an inconvenient trip with your mom when you have no time, like no concept of time, is annoying. But if you look at your time, how much time you have left, you're like, this may be one of the last 7 times I'm in the car with my mom.
Right.
And so having a timeline makes things feel weightier. And also, I think that you become more servant-hearted with that, more generous with your time. And you just give people the benefit of the doubt more. And you want to serve them because you want them to know how much you love them. as some of your last acts. So I tried to measure this with my kids' lives. I know it sounds really bad. It sounds really bad. But I had this marble set that represented the amount, each marble represented a week and how long before they turned 18. Because when they turn 18, they graduate and they move away, and you've lost your main influence time with your kids. And so every week I moved a marble from my main jar to a little jar. I did this when I lived in Vermont, and it made me so sad. I couldn't keep doing it because I realized how fast the time was going by because the jar of marbles wasn't very big. And so, but if we did that with our lives where we realize if you could handle the emotional weight of realizing how much time goes by, how fast, I think that for trips like that and for even the way that we serve each other, it becomes weightier because you have a timeline you're pushing up against, and you realize that like with these few moments, who am I going to be? Am I going to be someone who's all self-serving, like 4 out of these last 10 times that I have, or am I going to be someone who serves because that's the heart of Jesus? And I know I just like babbled a lot. I don't know if that made sense, but it's just like thoughts that were circulating.
Yeah, I'm gonna go cry tonight thinking of how many times I get to see my mom before she passes.
7, I think.
7.
That was the
You have
number.
5 more
Exactly.
rides. That was it.
Wild.
Man.
Wild.
Can I ask another question?
No.
Cool.
No, you
I'm really curious to know what the hardest situations are for you guys to serve. Like you already mentioned your family, right? But like, what is it, and like, why do you think it is? Like, what's the tension for you in those environments that you're like, hey, it's really tough for me to serve now, or why is it so tough? Like for family, or for maybe some people it's church, maybe some people it's friends. You know,
That's a good question. You want to go? Can you
I'm still trying to think.
Oh,
The
okay.
toughest situation for me to serve.
I mean, I think I won't give. I don't think I'll give specifics. I think I can give a general, and it's what Russ is talking about. Is when it comes at a cost for me. Like, to be honest with you, I wanted to be at Sanctuary last night. I haven't seen my mom in like 3 months, but I would have much preferred to be at Sanctuary with my friends, enjoying like community time, than walking through a Target where I wasn't buying anything. Nothing was being bought for me. I literally was just rolling around a cart. That was it.
Yeah.
Like the cost for me came at like, I'm not going to be able to spend time with my friends and selfishly enjoy the time that I get with the same people I see all the time. So when it comes at a cost of like what I want, what I'd prefer to be doing, how I'd prefer to be spending my money, like that's when it's like I don't want to do this. Like I'd much rather be either with my friends, or a big one. I'm an introvert. I'd much rather be at home by myself watching Netflix. Like, so when it comes at a cost of things that I value, that's when it's like, is this really worth it? Do I really want to do this? So that's a simple answer for me.
Yeah, I'd say something around the same where like when we were in Vermont, it was different just because our family lived far away. So if our family was visiting, that was really hard. If everyone was together having a really good time, and I knew that like I had a very short amount of time on like a Sunday to hang out, and I was going to spend my whole day at the church, that was really tough because time with family was really precious at that point because they live far away. So that's like the thing. If people are visiting from out of town, that's the hard time because but at the same time, it's kind of cool because you want them to come, which they can now because I work with adults. Where before it would be weird, like, "Hey, mom, you want to come to youth group? You know, see what I do." Yeah, that's the hardest time to serve for me. But at the same time, it's worth the serving, which is kind of like this tree analogy that we keep coming back to over and over again, where it's not the little. If you try to watch the tree grow hour by hour, you're gonna be really disappointed by the growth. But if you tend it and you watch it over time, you look back and you say, like, wow, look how far this tree has come just because of tending it and watching it over the course of a long time, over the course of years. And that's the way the serving is too. Yep. And whoever that philosopher is, what was his name?
I don't know. Russ Joy.
I don't know. I kept messing up his name. He had a silly name. But it really does apply to so much because that's like investment in serving really racks up over time, and you can see the huge influence that serving's had on lots of people and in their relationship with Jesus, which is really cool.
Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Any last thoughts on serving before we close out for today?
I mean, I think it's just all about comfort zone, right? I think if we get comfortable, it's harder and harder and tougher for us to step out and serve, right? So I think it's being aware where our value comes from, which is what we spent a lot of time talking about, but it's also about willingly sacrificing what we have and what we've already found in order to make other people's experiences better, or in order to love on other people even more powerfully, you know? So tough reminder, and not the easiest, but I wish, like, I hope that we all grow in that as well, talking about it more and more and hold each other accountable to that, you know?
This has nothing to do with serving. You guys should let us know if we should bring a random object to the show every time we record.
It's not a random object. It's a decoration.
It's a little bit random.
A decoration. Let us know, though. I think that'd be really cool.
Well, you need one because I have one behind me now.
Right.
And then
So
we
I need to bring
guess
something.
one.
Right. But we just keep adding in different places. People have to find them.
I want a neon sign. Just saying.
That's cool.
All right. Let's all say... Zach says he wants money. So Venmo Zach. Let's all close out today by saying goodbye in our smoothest voice, our smoothest radio voice.
You're doing it together or one at a time?
No, one at a time.
Oh, I
So
don't.
if it was like a radio sign off and it was some like slow jam station, how would you sign off?
You've been listening to 95.7 The Blues. Join us next time.
No, you already messed up.
I got it in my head.
You should have seen his lips quivering from the side angle of his lips quivering when he was trying to think of what to say.
I don't even know what to say.
Just do what Dan did. Same thing.
I don't even. What did you say?
Well,
I have to get into my like.
He's got the lip quiver.
late night voice. You know.
Got the lip quiver now?
It's when I call Zach. That's my late night voice.
All right, let's hear it.
Russ, you have to go. I have to get into like a, yeah.
Gotta get in the mindset.
Yeah.
Gotta play your character.
Right.
Don't look at him.
We're just waiting for...
This is taking long.
It's okay. Zach's gonna edit it. Nope. Just don't look, Dan. You can't look at him.
Oh, we're waiting for me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was waiting for you.
No, it's your turn. You said I had to get out of here. That's why I was trying to hide behind my hands.
Oh, no, I thought you were going.
Nope, you're up. I'm going to close it out. You know what? Your voice is probably the smoothest. You go last. Go look directly at the camera.
Stare into their eyes.
Ladies and gentlemen. No, that's too much of an announcement. Hey. I'll do what Dan did. You've been listening to the Smooth Jazz 95 XXX.
That one gets edited out.
That was a radio station in Vermont. Just saying. It was. They were like on the edge of a swamp, Colchester, Vermont. 95 XXX. That's what it was. All right, I want to say it. All right, ready? You gotta stop laughing. It's gonna ruin my smooth voice. You've been listening to Hot 97, hip hop and R&B. That's right, you heard it correctly. R&B, slow jam starting at 7 p.m. And we'll see you next week, or will we?
I think that was just quiet. I'm not sure that was smooth. That was just kind of whispering.
Can we
there.
just go?
It's better than yours. All right, no, you gotta go now. You gotta look right at the camera and talk.
I'm not.
Please don't say what Russ said.
I really can.
You gotta look at the camera first. Get in the zone.
I gotta move my whole.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. I feel. What would
Do
you
you
say?
want to lay in your stomach for
You gotta
this?
start peacocking.
Pretend like you're laying down.
I can't do it.
Yes, you
You
can.
have to.
Just look at the.
I feel
camera.
pressure. I feel too much pressure.
No, just
I
don't
crack
look at
under
us.
pressure.
Don't look at us. Look at the camera.
I'm trying to get my voice deep enough. All right, I'm just gonna do it. Go for it. What's the radio station?
95 XXX.
Definitely not. All right, ready? Thanks so much for joining us on 95.5. Have a great night.
And you guys are just quiet.
That was great. Yeah,
All right, we're done.
The quiet sultry voice. All right, see you, everybody.
Maybe just this once we could fall